a world full of podcasts, one podcast has one episode to give you 1 week of movie news. This is the Weekly Reel. Welcome to the Weekly Reel for the week ending August the 22nd. First up in movie news, we're going to talk about weapons. So it hung on to the number one spot over the weekend, bringing in another $25 million, adding up to a truly impressive tally of $155 million worldwide gross and only its second weekend of release, all on a budget of $38 million. Another genuine box office phenom for WB, who was on a historic run that started with the Minecraft movie, followed by Sinners, Final Destination Bloodlines, F1 the movie, and Superman, which itself is nearing $600 million worldwide. Our review of weapons can be found in the links under this episode's description, so be sure to check it out. The TLDR, or I guess the TLDW, is weapons is kind of an overrated Stephen King C-story knockoff, but one with admittedly great cinematography. It's kind of a very familiar story, purposely told in a manner as convoluted as possible to cover up its conventionality. I'd mentioned before in previous episodes of the pod several times that it's all kind of hinge on its ending, and yeah, it was incredibly goofy. If you're looking for a good horror/thriller, Bring Her Back really blows it out of the water and deserves all the hype Weapons has gotten. Hyperbole aside, though, even though it wasn't for me, I'm happy to see an original-ish movie do well both critically and commercially. Next up, we're going to talk about Highest to Lowest, which released last weekend, and you wouldn't really know it because it barely made a blip at the box office, which might have something to do with Apple's anemic rollout. For example, none of the AMC theaters seem to be carrying it. The closest other theater to me, and I live in LA, is about 10 miles away, which with our traffic is an hour-plus drive. And there's only one showing after 5 p.m. It's also in a smaller theater that already has all the good seats taken for the 3 days of showtimes that I can find so far. So, yeah, thanks, Tim Apple. Anyway, I hope to find it somewhere to watch this week and to bring you all a review. And if not, then really its intentionally sad release rollout in theaters will be short-lived, as the film is set to debut on digital and streaming in just a couple weeks on Apple TV. Next up, we're going to talk about Eddington. So Eddington saw a digital streaming release last week, and I saw it this week. How to describe Eddington? Well, the official synopsis is that in May of 2020, a standoff between a small-town sheriff and the mayor sparks a powder keg as neighbors pitted against neighbor in Eddington, New Mexico. But the way I would describe it is, it's like, imagine if Twitter, often referred to as the internet's town hall, right, didn't take place online at all, but instead an actual small town, and that town was faced with a pandemic, and then the Coen brothers decided to make a movie about it. And you might be thinking, like, who wants to relitigate the pandemic? And that was some of my skepticism, going in. But this is really such a masterful satirical skewering of it. This isn't an attack on any one person or group, per se, but the bad ideas that proliferated during that time, which really no one single group can claim sole credit over. Everyone became possessed during the pandemic with regurgitating talking points from their specific side, eschewing critical thinking for ideology and demagoguery. So what Ari Aster here does is he masterfully tiptoes a tightrope of just pitch-perfect parody, bringing the satire into sharp focus while balancing between the characters without them becoming characters or really fading into the background. In this, Joaquin Phoenix turns in another award-worthy performance here as a town sheriff who decides almost on a whim to challenge the city mayor, played by Pedro Pascal, who he himself turns in one of his best performances here as well. And for anyone else a little burnout on too much Pascal, I will say, I think you'll find a thing or two with his character and story that might make you even feel a little guilty about any sort of schadenfreude that you might have towards him. So back to the story. Ostensibly on the surface, this is the unraveling of a sheriff during a moment he's not built for, but all of us were really, ill-equipped, ill-mannered, and just plain ill to handle the moment. So we do see something of ourselves in his struggle to reckon with the moment. Now, while his external world comes crashing down around him, he begins to crash out himself in response and in retaliation. The old adage, you can judge a man by the size of his problems, is certainly a perspective to consider here, as his problems really proliferate and pile on, adversity ultimately revealing his true character. which is where the story really starts to diverge from our own experiences, and the movie cranks into yet another even higher gear, the plot redlining as a surrealist third act speeds into frame, propelling the characters towards the cliff's edge, heightening the story and stakes to a truly delightful absurdist level. However you might think this movie ends, I guarantee you probably won't see most of the climax or conclusion coming. It's truly a madcap caper and contemplation on the era that we really haven't stopped living in. If you think about it, we continue to limp on and shuffle forward from. Great art like this leaves us with plenty to ponder, mulling through both the expressions from it and our impressions of it. Eddington is one such piece of great art. And I'll continue to think about that and revisit it again in the future. Really just one of the true few 10 out of 10 movies I've seen this year. Next up, we're going to talk about Lord of the Rings, The Hunt for More Money. Really, at the urging of no one, a new Lord of the Rings movie is in the works, titled Lord of the Rings, The Hunt for Gollum, directed by Gollum motion capture actor Andy Serkis himself. Now, The Hunt for Gollum is set during the Fellowship of the Ring era, shortly before Frodo Baggins leaves the Shire for Rivendell. The film starts with Gandalf sending Aragorn on a quest to find Gollum. World of Real reported on Monday that both Elijah Wood is returning as Frodo, and Ian McKellen will be reprising his iconic role as Gandalf the Grey. Quote, over the weekend at London's For the Love of Fantasy fan event, McKellen updated the crowd on the new Lord of the Rings film, one directed by Andy Serkis. It's going to start filming in May. It's going to be directed by Gollum, and it's all about Gollum, McKellen teased. Now, Peter Jackson couldn't really make a decent prequel to his own Lord of the Rings movies, and does anyone really believe the director of Venom 2 fares a better chance? Peter Jackson was famously frustrated and stressed out during the production of the Hobbit prequel movies, which saw a very shortened timeline due to original director Guillermo del Toro dropping out, and Jackson having to scramble to piece together what was left while the movie barreled towards its release date, like having to assemble a plane in mid-air while also trying to pilot it. Also, I love here that McKellen just refers to Andy Serkis as Gollum, which is kind of fitting, given Serkis is acting like Gollum, imagining the precious profits from this. Finally, in movie news for this week, Ben Stiller is directing a World War II survival movie. So Ben Stiller made news this week during an interview with the LA Times where he mentioned he's now prepping an untitled World War II survival film, which is aiming for a spring 2026 shoot. But the larger takeaway for some fans might be that it means he won't be returning to direct season 3 of Severance. And as for why, Stiller remarked, quote, I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, the clock is ticking, which, fair enough to him. Now, my thoughts on Severance are season 1 was brilliant, bar none. One of the best single seasons of a show I've ever seen. And then season 2, I felt like it had its high moments, but then started to become a bit of a convoluted mess by the end of it. I know he and showrunner, creator Dan Erickson butted heads, and Erickson also fought with the previous showrunner as well. Maybe Ben just wants to leave it on a high note, not endure another 3 years of headaches for a show, which seems like it ultimately could end up having another Lost-style disappointing conclusion. We'll see. But, hopefully Ben Stiller directing his upcoming World War II film will be a better experience for him than the last time he did one.
Okay, I tried. Ben?
Yeah.
I need to swap the lines.
What do you mean you need to swap the lines?
For my friend, he wants to...
Your friend? No, I gave your friend a line.
Yeah, but I want him to have more.
You want him to have more? You want him to have more lines?
Yes.
I don't understand. Are you directing the movie? Or am I directing the movie?
But...
All right, next up, we're going to get into early buzz for the week. And kicking us off is Honey Don't. We got the first set of press reviews of Honey Don't, the latest film from Ethan Coen in his lesbian B-movie trilogy following 2024's Drive Away Dolls. Honey Don't is a dark comedy about Honey O'Donoghue, a small-town private investigator who delves into a series of strange deaths tied to a mysterious church. And everybody might remember Ethan Coen from his long-spanning career with his brother, Joel Coen, famously known as the Coen brothers, that brought us stuff like No Country for Old Men. But yeah, getting back to Honey Don't, it's not reviewing great either, just like Drive Away Dolls. It's coming in at a rough 46% on Rotten Tomatoes. The critical consensus of this is its disparate parts and desperate measures that spell defeat for Ethan Coen. this time around in a romp that tries to cast a wide net, but really just seemingly doesn't leave audiences saying anything positive, instead saying, honey, don't. First up, we had a positive review from David Fear from Rolling Stone saying, quote, "Quality is by far the best thing about director Ethan Cohen's tweaked spin on the gumshoe mystery genre. You can't overstate how much our performance glides the movie over an abundance of rough patches and past-tenant detours." Allison Wilmore from New York Magazine and Vulture had this to say, quote, "Despite the verve of the film, there's no there, just an exercise in quippy banter and witty violence that works well enough to remind you of better movies." Robbie Collin from the Daily Telegraph UK also didn't really like it, saying, quote, "Cohen wrote Honey Don't with his wife Trisha Cook, and the film has the unfortunate air of two self-styled cool parents gatecrashing their mortified teenage daughter's sleepover." Also releasing this week and having its review embargo lifted is Splitsville, written, directed, and starring Michelangelo Covino. The plot of this one revolves around when Ashley asks for a divorce, the good-natured Carrie runs to his friends, Julie and Paul, for support. Their secret happiness is an open marriage. That is, until Carrie crosses the line and throws all of their relationships into chaos. And it's reviewing really well, sitting at a fresh 82% on Rotten Tomatoes. The consensus on this one is that it breathes fresh life into the rom-com genre, especially carried by its two lovely leading ladies, and brings a satisfying amount of humor and heart. And first up, we have Jesse Hassinger from Pace Magazine giving it some praise, saying, quote, "I've seen plenty of indie comedies about couples trying an open relationship, and Splitsville may be the first one that's actually funny. It's also the rare romantic comedy that feels like a genuine, sometimes even dangerous balancing act between the two." Next up, more positive review from Luke Hicks from the Film Stage, saying, quote, "Under Covino's direction, there's a holistic sense of artistry, comedic precision, and creative control in their approach, especially per the rom-com, and of late, anemic subgenre that gets some resuscitation in their newest, Splitsville." Finally, Tim Roby from Daily Telegraph UK didn't really like it, saying, quote, "It plays much like one of those ensemble rom-coms Edward Burns used to make 30 years ago, like, say, She's the One, with two hip actresses being good sports and male nudity as the world's oldest punchline." This week also sees the release of Lurker, described as a screw-turning psychological thriller made for the moment. Lurker is the razor-sharp directorial debut from the Bear and Beef writer-producer Alex Russell. The reviews for this are at an extremely positive 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the critical consensus being that it is devilishly examining the intersection of fame and obsession to thrilling effect. Alex Russell's directorial debut seems to deliver on all fronts. And first up, I got a positive review from Karina Adelgard from Heaven of Horror, saying, quote, "Lurker is a new psychological thriller that you do not want to miss out on. It has an eerie, almost sinister vibe that is always lurking. Also, it has an ending as unpredictable as it is perfect." Jim Vorel from Pace Magazine also really liked it, saying, quote, "Russell's thriller throws off the weight of the expected tropes and narrative funneling to create a more interesting portrait of two young men who ultimately need each other to fill their emptiness, each convinced that they're the ones doing the exploiting." Finally, Taylor Gates from Collider has a low negative review, saying, quote, "Though the actors are all decent in their roles, the performers aren't enough to save flat writing and characterization, both of which make it difficult to get invested." Finally, releasing this week is the latest movie from Ron Howard titled Eden, which centers around the shocking true story of disillusioned outsiders who abandon modern society in search of a new beginning. Settling on a remote, uninhabited island, their utopian dream quickly unravels as they discover that the greatest threat isn't the brutal climate or the deadly wildlife, but actually each other. Now, Howard, who was last seen in the uproarious Hollywood insider comedy The Studio, which garnered him an Emmy nod, here things are not looking so great for old Opie, with his new flick unfortunately coming in at a decidedly mixed 59% on Rotten Tomatoes. The critical consensus being that it is an overly melodramatic affair, buoyed by some standout performances, but one that overstays its welcome and doesn't really do the real-life story justice. Our first review comes from Eric Lingberg from Everything's Interesting, who kind of damned it with some faint praise, saying, quote, "This movie is not the serious, thrilling drama it seems to have been intended to be. That lighting is so droll," whatever that means, but it is a deliciously campy soap opera of a movie full of cattiness, backstabbing, and one hell of a delightful performance from Ana de Armas. Next up, Ethan Dayton from That Shelf had this to say, quote, "If anything, Eden will hopefully encourage those of us who've never heard the Galapagos Affair to look into this deeply layered story, which is far more interesting than the movie presents their story to be." And finally, Tim Grierson from Screen International had this to say, quote, "Unfortunately, Howard fails to modulate this wickedness, and at over 2 hours, the picture becomes monotonous and unwieldy. Indeed, the malicious proceedings lose their power to unnerve to diminishing returns." All right, now we're going to check out the new trailers for the week, and kicking us off is going to be Keeper. Starting that now. Now, this is from Osgood Perkins, who did, they got the chapters like in Weapons, where it did the chapters for the different characters. Very similar to that in Weapons. This is from Osgood Perkins, who did Long Legs and The Monkey.
Do I even know this man? Is it his face I see?
I did not like Long Legs. I thought that was really a lot of hype that just
Or only a mask that he's wearing?
did not live up to it.
Always there. Looking back at me.
I like her. She's a great actress.
She's the keeper.
She played recently in She-Hulk. She's great in that. The director, though, gives me significant pause. This might be a skip on his name alone. So I imagine we're going to cut now to his chapter.
Why does it
Even
always have to end?
in the trailer. Called it. Yeah.
Is there any way to keep love alive?
So this whole thing obviously is
I even know this
another stab at the elevated horror genre,
I see when I close my eyes.
where
Oh,
being
the mask that she's wearing.
trapped together in a cabin, metaphor for
Always there.
simmering resentment and jealousy that builds in a relationship
I think
sometimes.
she's a keeper.
Okay. Yeah, Osgood Perkins movies, they make a great trailer. But when it comes to the finished product, lately, the stuff I've seen from him, actually, in general, it's just, he's kind of 0 for 2 for me. I don't resonate with his stuff. So I'll wait for reviews on that one and see how that one turns out. But yeah, that was Keeper. Okay. All right, next up in trailers, we got Ballad of a Small Player. Starting that one now. Okay, so we got Colin Farrell, who was really on an amazing run of starring roles. Recently Emmy nominated off of The Penguin. But you can look at his entire filmography the past few years, and he's just been crushing it and everything. This is from Edward Berger, who did Conclave, and then I think he was All Quiet on the Western Front. Tilda Swinton, always great. Oh, there it is. Exactly what I just said. I know I always say this in trailers, but the cinematography in this, it's just bold, bright, high contrast. Awesome. That looks awesome. It went by really quick. Colin Farrell, always amazing of late on this generational run with one banger after another. And that director, he is a strong 2 for 2 in my book as well. This looks like something usually you don't see from an Edward Berger. Most of his stuff is a little bit more serious. That one looks like he's having a little bit more fun. So cool. Looking forward to that. All right. So next up, we're going to look at the first trailer for Black Rabbit. Starting that now. It looks like it's Jude Law and Ewan McGregor.
I know.
Or wait. No, that's
Said to my face you'd squared it.
Jason Bateman.
I thought I could pay these guys back. Had a sure thing.
Wow. From the thumbnail, I thought that was Ewan McGregor.
Vince, big number.
Hello there. I'm not in this.
What do you think happens? You don't pay back a loan for 3 years. Ain't such a big number for you.
Love Jason Bateman, by the way. He
Black Rabbit.
does, of course, the Smartless podcast. But he had his hair
The restaurant.
grown out and the beard for a while, saying he was shooting a movie.
For you.
Clearly, this is that movie. Or is this a movie or a show?
Your brother has a real problem.
Not sure.
You understand what this all means, right?
So him and Jude Law play brothers.
20 grand a week until we're square. But if you're late, one single day, that's it. The restaurant, it's ours.
Oh, I love this already. I'm all on this.
I gotta ask, what happened to your shoes? I got a sweet number on the bus.
What a great pairing, Jude Law, Jason Bateman.
Chipping away at it. I'm doing my fucking part, Giggles. You're
Yeah.
fucking skimming. And what are you spending it on? You dragged us all into this.
Wow.
What are you gonna fucking do, Vin? Huh? What are you gonna fucking do?
So I
If we're gonna be lying to everybody,
believe this is from
we need to be honest with
the
each other.
director of The Order, which also had Jude Law. Wow, that looks fantastic. Yeah, I don't know if that's a TV show or a movie, but yeah, the director of that worked with Jude Law in The Order, which was a very underrated movie, I think a year or two ago. And then Jason Bateman looks like a different type of dramatic turn here. He looks like a bit of a dirtbag. So I'm excited to see him in a role like this. Because usually, outside of Ozark, that's not something you see from him very much. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and I'm going to be in this movie. I'm going to tell you what to do. You're not going to fuck around. Yeah, always love Jason Bateman. So Jude Law as well. Looks awesome. Can't wait for it. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Weekly Reel. New episodes drop at the end of every week, so you get a quick hit of what's really going on in the real world before heading into your weekend. If you're on YouTube and you like what you saw, then hit that bell below. Or if you're just listening to the pod, then please follow the show. But either way, feel free to drop a review in the comments. We appreciate you listening and have a great weekend.